We are to be joyful, Benedict says, in fasting, which sounds kind of strange. How are you joyful in fasting? Hello, welcome. I am Brother Francisco. This is All Good in the Brotherhood. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Benedictine Spirituality 101. Today, we're going to be talking about how to observe Lent like a monk. So we just started the Lenten season, and maybe you've already been noticing some difficulties in maintaining your fasts or in holding on to what you've committed for this season. So maybe you could find some encouragement about how did the monks do it? How does St. Benedict say that monks should practice Lent? Well, he has a chapter in the Rule about that exact thing, so we're going to jump into that. He begins by saying that a monk's life should actually be a continuous Lent, that the whole life of a monk should reflect the disciplines and the self-restraint that one ought to take on during the Lenten season. However, he does add that a lot of people don't have the strength for that. So because of that, they should hold on to Lent specifically as a time for renewal and restoration of self-discipline and self-denial. One important part about that idea, though, of continuous Lent is something that we should take on. Whatever good things we add to our Lenten practice, some kind of prayer, adding a daily rosary, giving more money to the church or to the poor, helping out in some kind of charitable organization, those shouldn't end when Lent ends. With the glory of the resurrection, does that mean the good we've been doing should also go away? No. In fact, at Easter, at the resurrection, they should be renewed and given almost a new life. So that's a way in which we actually could make our Lent continuous. Doesn't mean that we're white-knuckling it for our whole life or depriving ourselves of things that are good for us our whole life, but whatever good actions we take on, we should continue those. Now, Benedict says that because that continuous yearly observance of Lent is very difficult, the time of Lent, those 40 days, should be very intentional, and that it is meant to wash away the negligences of other times. So whether that is slacking off in some form of prayer, slacking in your charitable works or monetary donations to the poor or to the church, slacking off in your intentionality with your family or with your friends and kind of just spending a lot of time for yourself. Or maybe you're being indulgent in things, spending too much time on the internet, being gluttonous, spending too much time just on the couch eating. Maybe you're not taking care of your health and not exercising. Whatever it is, whatever we're neglecting to good that we should be doing, or neglecting the discipline that we should be having over other things, Lent is supposed to wash us of that negligence. And the tools that the church gives us of prayer, fasting, and almsgiving are the way in which we do that. Prayer turns us to God, fasting turns us outside of ourself, and almsgiving turns us towards other people. So that those areas of negligence probably reflect one of those three areas. And so prayer, fasting, and almsgiving can help restore that place of wholeness to ourselves. Now, Benedict says the things that one should do in Lent are add a little private prayer and take on some extra abstinence. And that these things should be taken on joyfully, in fact, and offered as a gift back to God, a sign of our love. For all the good He has done for us, let us do a little something and give it back to Him. We are to be joyful, Benedict says, in fasting, which sounds kind of strange. How are you joyful in fasting? Well, fasting or abstinence and a little private prayer are ways in which we can go closer to God, a relationship. Hunger reminds us of our soul's hunger for God. And if we let that hunger be an avenue by which we actually pray, rather than complain or just wish we had whatever we want to satisfy us, that brings us in deeper union with the Lord. And that private prayer then continues to establish and deepen that relationship. So the joy of Lent is the joy of that restoration of our relationship with God. And we don't just do Lenten practices to see if we can Sigma mindset ourselves or take on these self-deprecating actions in order to just white knuckle it and say, I can do this, or I need to buckle down. They're meant to be offerings back to God. We don't do these in a vacuum. We don't do these for no reason. We do them as an external sign to the Lord of how we really want to be in relationship with Him. It's a sign of our love. And we do it with joy, Benedict says, because of anticipating what is to come, Easter and the resurrection. We give up these things with a longing to imagine what was the longing of the people of Israel as they longed for a Messiah, or the longing of the apostles and Our Lady after Jesus died of wanting Him back. We can enter into that longing through our Lenten observance so that when Easter and the resurrection comes, it's all the more sweet, beautiful, and joyful. Depriving of ourselves of things consistently through Lent, when they were restored or brought back to us, it's to remind us of the restoration of what the resurrection is to our souls. Easter is all the more sweet if Lent is all the more difficult. So let's not slack off this Lent. Let's not take on just little tiny penances. Let's do something a little difficult. Not overburdening that we just let it all go because it's just too overwhelming or it's detrimental to our general well-being or ability to function. But let us take on some private prayer and a little abstinence. And in those things, draw closer to God so that at Easter, in that closeness, we might rejoice with Him more fully. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Benedict in Spirituality 101. I am Brother Francisco. God bless.